Welcome back, anatomy students. We're going to talk about the accessory structures of the skin. These include the hair, the skin glands, and the nails. You might be interested to know that these all develop during the embryonic stages of development. But let's talk about the hair first. So the functions of hair include protection. It's going to help to decrease heat loss from the head, so it's going to act as an insulator. As you know, you've got hairs in your nose and your ears, even around your eyes, and they're going to act also as touch receptors. So even if you just lightly move your hand over your arm, if you move a hair, you know that something moved very close by you. And that's because the hair follicle is attached to nerves. So the hair shaft is made up of dead keratinized epithelial cells, and there are three different layers. The core is called the medulla, which contains pigment granules, which is going to give your hair its color, the cortex, and the cuticle. And the cuticle is made up of flattened cells that kind of overlap, similar to how shingles on a roof overlap each other. The hair shaft is the visible portion of the hair, so that's going to extend above the epidermis, while the hair root is an extension of the very same thing of the hair shaft that extends below the surface of the skin. This is a cross section of a hair. You have the medulla here in the center, and the cortex and the cuticle. And then you have the entire hair root that is surrounded by a root sheath, and there are multiple layers to that. Now, the internal root sheath should not be pointing to this pink layer. Instead, the root sheath should be pointing right here to the orange portion, while the external root sheath is the tan. And then you have the dermal root sheath, which surrounds the whole thing. So it might surprise you, but really the root sheath is simply an invagination of the epidermis. And so it's going to contain many of the same cells that are found in the epidermal layers. The hair follicle, like I said, is made up of the root sheath, so you can take a look at this picture and see what that organization is. But now let's take a closer look at what lies at the very base of the root sheath. Um, we have the very base of the hair follicle, which consists of the hair bulb, the papilla, and the papilla contains something called the hair matrix. The papilla of the hair contains areolar connective tissue and also blood vessels, as you can see in the picture. And those blood vessels are going to provide oxygen and nutrients to the hair matrix, which actually consists of cells of the stratum basale. And just like in the stratum basale in the epidermis, this is where you have melanocytes embedded in the hair matrix, which are going to provide hair its color because the melanocytes contain melanin, which are granules of skin pigment. This is the area also that is the germinal layer. It's mitotic. It's going to undergo cell division. And so our hair is going to grow upwards towards the surface of the skin. Other structures that are associated with the hair include a smooth muscle called the erector pili. The erector pili is going to give us our goosebumps. So when it contracts, it pulls the hair so that it stands straight up and it kind of puckers the skin around the surface, giving us little goosebumps. And then also associated with the hair follicle is the hair root plexus, as you can see in the picture. And the hair root plexus are simply nerve endings. And whenever the shaft is moved, then it's going to send nerve impulses to allow our brain to know that something is moving nearby us. So there are multiple stages of growth with the hair. As I mentioned before, our direction of growth is going to be up towards the epidermis itself. So the matrix cells are going to divide and push those older cells up, up, up through the hair. And so once again, we have our live cells at the bottom, while the ones that we actually see, the hair that we brush and we cut and we wash, all of those cells are dead. And here you can read about the different hair growth stages. As I mentioned, hair color is provided by the melanin, which is found in the melanocytes, which are found in the hair matrix. The type and the amount of melanin are going to determine hair color. So, for instance, people that have white blonde hair are not going to have nearly as much melanin as someone who has dark brown hair or black hair. Now let's move on and talk about some of the glands that we have in our skin. We have ceruminous glands, which are found inside of our ears, sebaceous or oil glands, and then we have two types of sweat glands, apocrine glands and eccrine glands. These glands are going to contain epithelial cells that actually secrete a substance. Let's talk first about sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands secrete sebum, and this root, SEB, means oil. They're found everywhere on the body except not in the palms of our hands or the soles of our feet. And this sebum is going to prevent our hair from drying out. It's going to prevent excessive evaporation of water, and it's even going to have an antimicrobial effect in order to prevent the growth of some bacteria. I want you to notice where our sebum is released. It is attached to a hair follicle. So the sebaceous glands don't have its own duct that works its way up to the surface of the hair. Instead, it's going to borrow the the tunnel that the hair shaft grows out of. So our sebaceous glands are associated with our hairs. Our sudoriferous glands are sweat glands. The eccrine sweat glands, beginning with the letter E, are unique in that they have their own duct that releases to the surface of the skin. This sweat that it produces is primarily for thermal regulation. It consists largely of water, but it will also contain some waste products as well. Sweating from the forehead and scalp and other areas, that watery sweat that you wipe off, that is coming from the eccrine glands. And even emotional sweating, if you get nervous or frightened, the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet, your armpits or the axilla are going to start to sweat as well, and that sweat is produced by the eccrine glands. So eccrine glands are found all over the body. Our apocrine sweat glands are not found all over the body. They're going to have larger ducts than the eccrine sweat glands, and if you notice, they are going to also empty into the hair follicle. So they're going to be associated with hairs, just like the sebaceous glands are. The sweat that these glands produce is milky or yellow, and there's no odor unless there is bacteria on the surface of the skin that will break it down. And that BO smell, that body odor smell, that's actually a byproduct of the breakdown of the sweat by the bacteria. It contains lipids and proteins. They're going to start functioning during puberty, and they don't play a part in thermal regulation. It's only the eccrine sweat glands that do that. We have ceruminous glands that are found in the external ear. This is what causes earwax. It's basically sweat plus the secretions of ceruminous glands, which includes some lipids because it's going to break down the cell membranes of old cells that are found inside of the glands, and it's going to function to produce a sticky substance, and it prevents foreign materials from entering the ear, and it's also waterproof. Finally, we have nails, and nails are made of keratinized epidermal cells, but they're different from hair. And it's different from our skin because the keratin that is found in our nails is harder than that is found in our hair and in our epidermis. The purpose is to protect the terminal edges of our fingers and our toes. It's going to add support and to enhance touch sensations. And it's also going to help us to grasp small objects and also with our grooving. And these are the parts of the nail that you need to know. Just to highlight a few things, the nail root is the portion of the nail that is not visible. And the cuticle, the epiconium, is a part of the stratum corneum of the epidermis. And this portion is what's going to kind of cover or like connect the actual nail body or the visible portion of the nail to the skin that it lies underneath. The nail bed is the portion of the skin that's below the nail plate or the nail body. The free edge is the part that you trim if needed. And the hyponychium is the portion that actually connects the nail body to the fingertip itself. And maybe you've had a mishap peeling an orange and it gets separated a little bit, and some of the juice from the orange gets under there, and wow, is it painful. And then, of course, in this diagram, you can see the relationship to the between the portions of the nail to that of the dermis and the epidermis and the bone of the finger itself. Now, the nail matrix is a really important part, and this is the epithelium that is proximal to the nail root. This is where the dividing cells are located. And so here we've got our live cells, and they're going to push upward in order to form that nail body. And the further up they go, by the time they reach that nail body, these cells are dead. All right, this is a check for understanding of the last three portions of our PowerPoint. And so these are the questions that you should be able to answer. I will post these answers on our module. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.